Hello guys, today we are going to talk about the Photoshop layer panels. Everything you need to know about your layer panels, we're going to discuss today. Alright, let's begin. So I'll create my file. It's a 1920 by 1080p pixels file, right? 1980, 1080, then 300 resolution with a content of white background. Then I click hit create. Now we have our workspace up and ready for work. Now when you create a new page, you'll be welcomed with a white background. Now, this background is your white background, and this is what it contains, right? Now, if you check your layer panel now, you just get only one layer, which is your background. This is your background, and that's the only thing contained. It comes with a default background, and this background now is like your base background. It's like your white sheet of paper that you use to draw on, right? So now if you try to move this background now, you can't move it. It will bring this pop-up that says the current layer is a background layer, which means you can't be able to move it, which means it's not an object, it's not an image, so you can't move it, right? Let's say I change it now. Why? Because it is padlocked here, right? Because it's padlocked and locked as a layer, as a background layer, so you can't use it for anything. So if I click on the padlock to unlock it, you see that you can actually move it around, right? So that's just the essence of it. This is what you'll be greeted with when you come into Photoshop for the first time. Now I'm going to create other layers so that you see how this layer panel works. So first off, I'm going to click on the rectangle tool, and I just first off I change the color. Let's say I use yellow. Then the stroke up here, I remove the stroke, right? And okay, now if I draw a box here now, it gives me a random box. But if I hold down the shift key and drag, it gives me a perfect square. So I'm looking for a perfect square, then I just drag and drop. Now, immediately you do that, you notice on your layer panel that it creates another layer for you, and the name is called a rectangle because it's a rectangle tool, right? So you can actually move this around. Why? Because it's a layer. Now, this layer now, it's under the background layer, right? This your rectangle now is under the background layer, the layer 0, which is the white space, right? So if you check by the right of each layer, the thing has an eye. And what does that mean? It means to either view or not view that particular layer. For example, we have this yellow rectangle. If let's say I don't want to see it, I could just put it off and the thing disappears on the screen, right? It's just to show and not show an object or a layer on your workspace, right? Now we can actually do whatever we want with this image here. Now I'm going to write another text. Let's say I use Bebas, and I change the font size to 24, right? So if I write text layer, now we have another layer here, which is your text layer, right? Now, if you notice here on your layer tab here also, you realize that you have another layer on top of the rectangle. So if you move it now to the rectangle, let's say somewhere here, right, and you increase it a bit, let's say you just increase the size a bit, right, you see that it's on top of the layer. And if you move this one now, if you move the text layer down under the rectangle, right, you see the thing goes behind the rectangle. It's like moving it. And if you if you move the rectangle now under the layer, it comes. So what this layer panel does is it stacks your objects in order of at which it appears, right? Let's say I have another object, I import an image. Let's say I import something like this. Let it load for a bit. I import something like this, right? Now you will see that the image panel now, the image panel now is beneath the text layer. And if I move it up on top of the text layer now, it stacks over the text layer and covers everything else because it is the first on the list, so it covers everything beneath it. But if I move it now to the list behind it, everything comes above the image. Why? Because they are stacked above it, right? So for now, I'm going to hide this because I'll be using it later. Now, for our text panel now, we have our rectangle, and I can move the rectangle to the top, and now it covers the text layer. Now, there is blending, there's here and down, here, this drop down here is your blending mode. Now, you can change all the modes. It's good that you play around with them. You can change the mode. If I just select now, you see that it changes the mode of your color and how this is used now to blend two layers, like, or multiple layers. You see that if I select this item and try to blend it now, you see that the colors that interacts with them changes. We have the linear light. You notice that the white space doesn't have the yellow, and this yellow space now, this is where the square is. It just blends it now with the layer panel. You can play around with this blending mode. We have overlay, soft light, hard light, vivid light. I've been getting a lot of question of how do I blend my background to the layers and the rest. Where this is what we use to blend our modes. I'm going to do one example. I'm going to show you something. Let me change the background. I'm going to change the background to, let's say, a wine red, right? And I'm going to like hide those other write-ups. Then I'm going to import a background to show you how the blending mode works. Now we have this picture here now on top of the background layer, which is your layer 0. Now if I select it and use my blending mode, you see how it blends with the background because it's a red background, so it will want to blend perfectly with the background. So originally what I just used is my overlay, my color overlay when I'm running, if I'm looking to make a classic background or something like that. So there's no limit to what you can do with your blending mode, right? And that's the job of the blending mode. We're gonna go back, right? So we can continue. So that's the job of in a normal your blending mode. Now beside it here we have our opacity. Now what the opacity does is it makes like the name implies, it creates this see-through. It shows you how see-through it is, or how the visibility increases or reduces the visibility of your a particular layer, right? Let's say I have this rectangle selected. Now if you check the opacity, it is 100% visible, but if I change it to 50% now, you see that it's 50% visible. Like, you can see through it, via 50%. And you can actually reduce it to 40, 30, or the rest. You can reduce it to 7% or the rest, but it doesn't make any sense because you can actually just hide it if you don't want to see it at all, right? So that's what the opacity does now. Now the fill, what it does, it's reduced the feel of any object, not not the not the effects you put on it, just the feel of the particular object. It actually works. It actually works as as opacity, but it doesn't affect the effect. I'm going to explain much more later when we get the deep dive right um, into it. So we have this. Now I'm going to move this down and let's just play with our. Now then, and down here we have our link layers. That's this layer is used to link two or more layers. So if I select two layers now or more, it links. You see that it becomes visible. You can link two layers. What it means invariably is any action I carry out on this layer, on one layer, will affect the other layer, or any effect I give one layer will affect the other layer, right? So that's what this link layer does. You just link two layers. You just link two layers and carry out any effect or any action you want to carry on both of them, and the thing works simultaneously. Yeah. So that's how it works. Then we have our blending options. Now this is where you carry out all your effects and all your presets, all the whole design or all the whole effect you have in mind to do. You can actually do the function. Once you just click on it, you see blending options. We have bevel, we have stroke to add strokes, inner shadow to add inner shadows, inner glow, setting, color overlay. During the course of these lessons, this journey, we are going to be touching one or almost all of them. You have drop shadow. If you click on drop shadow now, the thing creates drop shadow for you. And let's just put it up, and now you see that the thing creates a drop shadow for you. Nice shadowy effect right here for you. Let me just reduce this a bit. Yep. So you see that it creates this shadow effect for you, right? Now you have other options. You have your bevel effect. You have your stroke. You have inner shadow, inner glow, satin, color overlay, gradient overlay, patterns, outer glow, and whatnot. So all the effects you want to effect on a layer, this is your go-to guy, this blending option. Then we have our layer mask. Now I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this right up. Let's say it's Friday, right? I think it's supposed to have an apostrophe somewhere. Yep. I'm going to paste this out. So I'll just put it's Friday here because I'm trying to work on something. So I'll unhide this my write up to explain what your layer mask is. Now what your layer mask does invariably, I'm going to bring the picture above the rectangle, right? Okay. Now what your layer mask does is it masks, it puts, it's like putting one layer into another layer. Let me explain. If I click on mask, what it means invariably is you can effect changes on this particular image, right, without damaging the image itself. Let's say for example you want to clean up somewhere in this image that you don't want, you can just, when you mask it, it creates this white part by the side, which means you can actually draw or effect anything you want to effect by the side or on this image without effect affecting the main image. So I've selected my eraser tool, and if I say I should erase, you see that it erases some parts of the image, right? Now if you look closely, it begins to clear up the place that you are deleting from. All the parts that you've deleted, it clears it up for you, because it's like helping you to keep the original image while cleaning the part you don't want. Let's say I don't like it, I want it back the way it should be. I can just I can just use my I can just click on it, right click, then delete layer mask, and everything comes back. The image is still intact, right? That's the job of your layer mask. There are other things that your layer mask can actually achieve, but we are going to go deep into it when we continue. I'm just explaining parts for you. All right. Now we have this panel here. This is where you use to actually work on your image. This is your adjustment layer. Every adjustment you need to do on a particular on this layer panel, now on your layer panel, this is where you get it. You can create a solid color, you can create a gradient. If you click on solid color, the thing creates a solid color for you, and you can choose what solid color you want. And if you click OK, the thing creates a fill for you just above the image you are at, right? So it creates a fill. Let's say you either want a gradient, you can create a gradient. You just click on it and the thing creates a gradient for you, and you can change the gradient, right? That's it. Also, we have pattern. You can actually create patterns. You can adjust the brightness, the levels, the curves, and the exposure of your layers. Let's say this image now you want it more bright, you can just click on the brightness and you can increase the brightness, right? You can increase or reduce the brightness. Let's put it at the top so that it increases the brightness of all the layers above. So let's say you just want to target just a particular let's say you want to target just a particular layer, right? You say you want to make only her picture bright and you don't want anything else. You can just move it at the top of the layer, and what you do is you press your alternate key and you mask it into once you press, and there will be an arrow showing between the close up and the picture and the layer, the brightness layer. There will be this arrow. Now, just like once you see this angle pointing down towards the image, it means that you're targeting just that image to blend it in. And if you click on it, it just brightens just that particular image and nothing else, right? Now, I'll use something else that's more visible, like your levels or your curves. If I select my curves now and put it at the uppermost part of the layers, if I try to adjust it, you notice that the adjustment works for all the whole layers. Why? Because it's not targeted to a particular layer. But if I move it down to the image and I do the same thing, alternate and click, you notice that it targets just the image, and that's how it works. And we're going to use this now to place this image right inside this box. Remember, I promised that we're going to do a little design for a fashion brand, right? That's what we're going to do here. So there are other adjustment layers here you can play around with at your own time. You have your brightness and contrast, the levels, the curves, the exposure, the vibrance, the hue and saturation. We're going to talk a little bit about the hue and saturation and others. Now, here's the little trick. Now, first off, what we are going to do is we are going to select our image on this layer panel here, then go to select option in your file panel, and you see subject. To select the subject, you click on select subject and you wait for a bit. Now, what this does is it uses AI to auto select a particular image for you, and that's the easiest way to select your image. Now we have our image selected. What we'll do now is we just click on this our layer mask here. Now what it does automatically is after your selection, it masks out the background, right? Now you can see that we have our background, the background of the image removed. And if you move it now, you see that the background is no more there. Now we're going to adjust this image for a bit. I'll just click on the layer mask thumbnail and it opens up this Dropbox for you. Now what it does is just helps you to edit the image or the selection you've made to make it cleaner. Now I'll just select this brush tool here to just brush out any part that is not wanted from the selection. And you see that there are some parts remaining with the color. You see as I click, it removes it. Then we'll shift the edge down a bit and it's looking nice. Then we click on OK. So we have our perfect image. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move it to the yellow background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it inside the rectangle. Right now I've placed it, and what happened was you see that it is inside the box now. The image is inside the box. It only exists inside the box. That's what this mask does. It masks it inside the box. Sorry, I'm not saying English. So we have this here. Then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate it by hitting Ctrl J with the layer that you have selected. And you just hit Ctrl J and it's it has created another duplicate outside the masked object. Now all you need to do now is just to erase out the part. Now remember we have this image masked, so we can actually just use our eraser tool because it's going to be easy and just erase the part that is outside the box out. There we have it. People have been asking how I did this effect, and this is how I did it. We have our image inside and outside the box. So that's a little trick, guys. And there you have it. We've learned everything we need to know about our layer panels. On the next lesson, we are going to talk about our channels like the RGB, the green, and how to arrange your colors and how to effect changes on images or your layers per time. So for all of that and more, catch you in the next lesson.